Bill, thanks. Venezuela's economic stability is in its most vulnerable state yet, and oil could potentially be the tipping point here. That's their big thing in Venezuela. Here to break it all down is University of Maryland business professor Peter Morici. Peter, thanks for coming back today. We have a unique opportunity here to really make an impact using oil. If we look at this graphic here, it shows that only about 6% of our oil comes from Venezuela, but 39% of the oil that Venezuela ships out comes here, which means if we cut them off in some way, it could really, really hurt this regime. What do you think?
Well, I think it would have an impact, but I don't know that it would be a salutary effect, simply because the Chinese are investing heavily in Venezuela. They'll likely buy the oil and buy less oil from someone else. From our point of view, though, we have lots of extra oil in Texas these days because of the shale boom. We've been exporting some of that oil. We could use it in those refineries, though the refineries would have to be adjusted because folks don't realize this, but most refineries are focused on a particular source because oil varies from place to place in terms of how much sulfur it has, how much heavy it is, and so forth.
Sure. You know, the regime, they're blaming this collapse in prices of oil around the world. It used to be over $100 a barrel. It plummeted. They're saying that's the reason that this is all fallen apart in their country. But there's a lot of countries that do a lot of business in oil that haven't seen a free fall like Venezuela. Why is this so bad there?
Well, it's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez type economics.
Yeah.
I mean, basically the stuff that Liz Warren and Cortez are trying to sell us now are the kinds of policies they have in Venezuela. It's good old-fashioned Soviet-style socialism, more like French dirigism, and it doesn't work. In country after country, the regime has failed. And the other thing is that, like so many Latin American countries, it has some kind of dictatorship, a failure of democratic processes, and so forth. It's a terribly corrupt place. But I mean, you can say that about just about any place south of the Rio Grande these days.
Yeah, that's it is. It certainly is a mess. I guess, you know, the decline happened in only a matter of years. It was a pretty quick decline. Should capitalist societies, I guess, take note of that? Is there a big lesson to be learned here? And let's real quick.
There's two things.
Go ahead.
There's two things here.
Yeah.
Is one, there's these kinds of policies, a wealth tax, a 70% income tax, redistribution policies. They only worked there when oil was $100 a barrel.
Right.
And the second thing is it segues very nicely into the immigration problem. It's not just drug dealers coming across the border. It's having millions of people come into America and change the culture. So all of a sudden, we're starting to do the kinds of things in America that they do in Latin America in terms of public policy, and we destroy our own democracy. The wall is not about criminals and drug dealers. The wall is about preserving American exceptionalism and culture so that we can continue to be a thriving, market-oriented society.
Yeah. I mean, people talk about how socialism is fair, right? But I mean, as the machine slows down, everybody's getting treated fairly, but there's just not that much to go around because there's not as much energy going into the economy.
Everyone is equally miserable.
Yeah,
that's what socialism
that's
gives
the Churchill quote, right?
But, well, several people said that.
Yeah.
And as a consequence, you know, basically, why should you work hard? Why should you start a business and so forth? If you're going to get taxed at 70%, then you're going to have your wealth taken away. In post-war Britain in the 50s, they decided to start paying everybody the same. So all of a sudden in the factories, that was the factory era, they had no skilled workers. Because why should you, learn a trade if you can just show up and get the same pay sweeping the floors? Yeah. You make some great points as we watch this all just unravel in Venezuela, and we wonder what this administration will do about it, if anything. Well,
Peter?
it clearly can bring pressure, but the fact is, if the Chinese want to bankroll it, then we're going to have another Castro. We're going to have another Cuba.
Yeah.